2 a.m. in the Strait of Hormuz. A massive steel array perched on the Iranian shoreline whirs to life before grinding to a halt. The Bavar 373 radar has locked on its target. Deep inside a buried launch tube, a Sejjil 4 missile ignites, and a wall of fire slams against the concrete floor. The missile bursts through its canister cap and hurtles into the night sky at 4,000 miles per hour, 5 times faster than a rifle bullet. 50 miles away, an MQ-9 Reaper drone drifts in lazy circles over the water. Its sensors scream a radar lock, but there is nowhere to run. The missile does not need a direct impact. Its nose cone shatters in mid-air, spraying thousands of heavy metal pellets, like the blast from a giant shotgun. The pellets shred the drone's thin frame, snapping off a wing and rupturing the fuel tank. A $30 million aircraft becomes a falling heap of scrap metal that sinks beneath the surface. The ultimate grid has just fired the first shot, and the ceasefire is dead. This scenario is purely hypothetical, crafted for education and entertainment. Stay with the story, because the betrayal is only beginning. The wreck of the drone continues to sink as Phase 2 unfolds. 10 miles away, tucked behind the jagged rocks of Larak Island, the Iranian fast attack fleet awakens. These are Peykaap-class boats, slipping across the black water in total darkness, moving in a single line, one behind the other. Every 30 seconds, a heavy iron sphere rolls off the stern of a boat and drops into the sea. These are contact mines. When a lead spike touches a ship's hull, a glass tube inside shatters, mixing chemicals that spark the main charge. The boats are laying an invisible wall across the strait. 2 miles to the west, a commercial oil tanker named the Stellar Glory pushes slowly through the shipping lane. It carries 2 million barrels of crude, so heavy it cannot turn or stop in time. The bow crosses the invisible line. A spike scrapes the red paint, the tube cracks, a spark jumps, and the explosion is catastrophic. The aft of the ship bursts open, the spine of the vessel shearing in half. But the Iranian pack is not finished. They want the strait physically choked by a burning wreck. One Peykaap boat turns toward the dying tanker. A rail on its deck hums as the guidance system locks on. A NASA anti-ship missile ignites, drops to just 10 feet above the surface, and hides in the salt spray of the rolling waves. The crew never sees it coming. The NASA strikes dead center where the oil tanker sits. The second blast is 10 times larger than the first. Crude pours from the broken hull and catches fire, spreading across the water until the sea itself becomes a lake of burning black liquid. While this massacre burns, messages are still being typed in the cool, quiet rooms of Qatar. Diplomats murmur about ceasefires and peaceful resolutions. Those words are now meaningless. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy used the peace talks as a shield, getting close enough to pull the trigger, betting that while diplomats talk, no one will dare fire back at the Iranian coast. The Peykaap boats turn for home, but they are wrong. The Stellar Glory is still a roaring tower of flame when the United States Navy strike group in the Gulf of Oman begins its answer. 2 EA-18G Growlers scream off the carrier deck, heavy pods slung under their wings. The instant they reach altitude, they flood the air over the Iranian coast with electronic noise. On the shoreline, the Bavar 373 array is the brain of the ultimate grid, built to see everything, even stealth jets. When the Growlers light up their pods, the Iranian radar screens go pure white. Imagine hunting for a single candle while a floodlight burns into your eyes. The enemy is no pushover. The Bavar's computers recognize the jamming and begin frequency hopping, hunting for a gap in the wall of noise. For one split second, it finds a hole. A canister cap shatters and a Sayyad 4 ignites. If it connects, the United States loses its main air defense jets in the opening minute. The Americans are flying into a kill zone where the enemy owns the home field, but the United States forces have been waiting for exactly this. 4 F-18 Super Hornets are already aloft, each carrying 2 AGM-88 HARM missiles. They release a volley of 8. The HARMs ignite and accelerate to 1,500 miles per hour, climbing high before diving straight down the throat of the Iranian radar beams. On the ground, operators see the warning and know what is coming. They cut the power to their multi-million-dollar Bavar 373 arrays, praying that if they stop emitting, the missiles lose their way. But the newest HARM has a digital memory. The moment that radar switched on to fire, the missile memorized its exact GPS coordinate. It knows precisely where the truck is parked. The missiles fly on in total silence. 4 separate radar sites along the coast vanish in flame. The steel arrays are tossed into the air like toys. The concrete bunkers housing the grid's computer brain are shattered. This is the trap. Turn the radar on. The missiles find you. Turn it off. The missiles already know where you are. Either way, the grid dies. With the radar fence unzipped, the fast attack fleet is suddenly naked. The Peykaap boats that laid the mines now run for the shallow water near the coast, betting the United States won't fire into a crowd. They are wrong again. The United States is not dropping dumb bombs across an area. They are using surgical tools. High above, an MQ-9 Reaper watches through an infrared camera, seeing the boat engines glowing like white-hot coals. The operator, 500 miles away, settles a laser dot on the lead boat's fuel tank. A Hellfire missile drops from the wing. It does not make a massive blast that could harm civilian ships. It punches a small, incredibly hot hole through armor, striking the back of the boat at 1,000 miles per hour. The composite hull, made of plastic and glass, offers zero protection. It disintegrates and vanishes beneath the waves. At the same instant, the Super Hornets release their heavy hitters, the Joint Stand-Off Weapon. It is a 1,000-pound glider with wings and no engine, so it makes no sound. 3 JSOW munitions arrive together, targeting the IRGC hovercraft creeping toward the hidden underground pens. These hovercraft are massive, trying to beach themselves on the sand to hide. The JSOW hits the propeller assembly of the lead craft and shears off the giant fan. The hovercraft slams onto the sand at 50 miles per hour and breaks into thousands of pieces of jagged metal and burning rubber. The entrance to the underground pens is now buried under a mountain of scrap. The remaining boats realize they cannot hide and cannot run, so they fight. They fire their nadir missiles at the Super Hornets, but without the land radar grid to guide them, their onboard radars are weak. The Growlers are still up there. They see the launches and aim their jamming beams straight at the missiles. The missiles' computers panic, zigzagging wildly until they run dry and tumble harmlessly into the sea. The Super Hornets won't waste another costly missile on the last few hulls. They roll into a dive and switch to their 20mm cannons. The gun fires 100 rounds per second, each shell the size of a large flashlight and made of heavy metal. A stream of tracers walks across the water toward the final boat. The shells pass through both sides of the plastic hull as if it were not there. The boat stops dead, its nose dipping under as the sea floods in. The IRGC spent billions on stealth boats and a high-tech grid, but stealth only works if the enemy cannot see you. Once the radar grid died, the stealth boats became slow targets in a shooting gallery. The sea falls quiet again, except for the distant roar of the burning tanker. But the United States is not finished. They have destroyed the fleet. Now they will destroy the ground it was built on. To keep the Strait of Hormuz open, they must kill the brain of the IRGC Navy, the massive naval base at Bandar Abbas, shielded by 20 feet of reinforced concrete and buried deep inside a mountain. Across the water, on the coast of the United Arab Emirates, a battery of HIMARS launchers rotates its pods. They do not fire one shot at a time. They fire a ripple, 6 rockets leaving the tubes in 3 seconds. Because the radar grid is already unzipped, nothing warns the base that the sky is about to fall. The first rocket hits the main fuel depot, a cluster of white tanks holding millions of gallons of diesel. A pressure wave races outward at the speed of sound, flattening every fence and light pole within half a mile. A secondary blast throws black and orange fire 500 feet into the air. The base loses its power and fuel in the first 5 seconds, but the real eraser comes from the sea. 200 miles out in the deep Arabian Sea, a United States destroyer opens its vertical launch cells. A volley of Tomahawk cruise missiles, the BGM-109, climbs into the night and then drops to rooftop height, weaving around obstacles invisible to any surviving sensor. 10 Tomahawks reach Bandar Abbas at once, targeting the piers where the reserve fleet is moored. They strike the concrete pilings where the docks meet the water. The United States is erasing the very ground the ships sit on. The blast is so violent that the 1,000-ton pier simply slides into the sea. Boats not hit by missiles are crushed by the falling docks or flipped by the waves. Iran may have more boats in reserve, but now there is no place to park them, no fuel to run them, and no way to reach the water. Finally, the F-35C Lightning II stealth jets arrive to finish it, carrying the AGM-154 JSOW. The F-35C releases 4, flying in tight formation, striking the same spot on the mountain. The first bomb clears the dirt. The second cracks the concrete. The third and fourth slip into the hole and detonate deep inside the command center. The mountain literally breathes fire. The brain of the IRGC Navy is now a smoldering ashtray. The ultimate grid has been physically erased from the map. 5 minutes have passed since the first HIMARS rocket left its pod. The Growlers still loiter at 30,000 feet, their screens showing 0 radar emissions. A high-altitude drone passes over Bandar Abbas, beaming a live feed back to the strike group and to the negotiating table in Doha. There, the American negotiator simply slides a tablet across to the Iranian diplomats. On the screen, they see the empty patches of Earth where their multi-million-dollar radar trucks used to sit. The Doha betrayal has failed. Out in the strait, the 1,200-foot tanker still burns, but the wind pushes the flames away from the lane. A United States minesweeper uses high-frequency sonar to find the underwater spheres, then sends a robot to place a small charge on each chain. One by one, the iron mines are triggered, and the water erupts in small controlled geysers as the invisible wall comes apart. The final act is electronic. the United States military switches off the jamming. They want the Iranian diplomats to be able to make a phone call. They want them to call home and learn there is no one left at the base to answer. Before you go, here is one thing about the AGM-88 HARM that almost nobody mentions. The missile that ended this fight was never born a smart weapon. In the beginning, it was just a rocket with a simple ear. If it heard a radar, it flew toward it. But the version, flown tonight, carries something called home on jam. The Iranians tried to jam the American signals to save their base. The trouble is, the HARM actually likes jamming. If the enemy hides behind electronic interference, the missile uses that interference as a guide. You cannot hide by switching the radar off, and you cannot hide by drowning out the signal. The very defense grid Iran built to be impenetrable was the exact thing that walked the United States right to their doorstep.